They're set to do some early business for the first time in God knows how long. Joao Palhinha looks like he's coming in, 26-year-old central midfielder from Sporting. Not surprising. Obviously, this is the Ruben Neves replacement. Everyone knows this has been linked with him for years. And there's a lot to like about this deal. Obviously, he's 26, which is a good age. When you look at the Wolves squad, we have very few players in that kind of 28 to 24 bracket. I spoke about this in our season review I did a few days ago. We have very few players in that kind of pool of area, and that's what's going to be our squad for the next few years. When you look at the Wolves squad in 3 years' time, we don't know if a lot of these young players who we all like are going to be good enough, and these guys at the top are going to be really old. So you're going to be building your side around the 28 to 24-year-olds. And obviously Kilman's great, Neves is leaving, Adama's leaving, Potenzi's always injured, Hwang and Dendonk aren't very good, and then Johnny and Semedo play the same position. So getting a 26-year-old in is good. He's a good age profile. He's Portuguese. Apparently the fee's like 25 mil. We'll probably get 50 for Neves maybe. So you've still got 25 mil to spend. And he's getting the business done early. Nothing wrong with that. My only concern with this is, and Pellegrini's obviously played in a 3-4-3 a lot as well. Obviously at Sporting they play 3-4-3 under Ruben Amorim, who's been his manager for the last 3 years now at Sporting when he was on loan at Braga. So that's good as well. The only concern I have with this is going into next season, there's three kind of, assuming he is the Neves replacement, which he 100% is, there's three ways this transfer goes. We stick with a 3-4-3 and we try and make Palhinha into a Ruben Neves replacement, as in do the exact same role Ruben does. That's scenario one. Scenario two, we stick with the 3-4-3 again, but we change that role and let Palhinha play his more natural game. Or obviously the third scenario is we just don't play a 3-4-3 anymore and we go to a back four. Now, in the second scenario, I have no issue with this. Look, these are Champions League numbers, by the way. Let me clarify that. And obviously Sporting, they were playing in a group with Ajax and Dortmund and then obviously got smashed by Man City over two legs. So these numbers aren't necessarily indicative. Like all he's on the ball and numbers and stuff are terrible. But, playing in a non-ball dominant side, obviously in the Champions League is going to affect that. Like Trincao's numbers at Wolves on the ball are bad. He's got 77 pass completion rate, 2 progressive passes. Whereas when you look at his Barca numbers, obviously a lot higher. So that has to be taken into account. But what you can tell from his defensive numbers, jacked in pressures and tackles, but pretty low in interceptions. Now, for a defensive mid, that's fine, by the way. I'm not slagging that off. That's completely fine. There's loads of midfielders like this. Like Calvin Phillips, for example, leads very similar, loads of pressures and tackles, but a bit lower in interceptions. Whereas you get someone like Milan Badel, for example, who's got really high interceptions but low tackles. That's just part. And also you get, defensive midfielders like Ruben Neves who kind of have a bit more of a split in both. That's fine. That's cool. Nothing wrong with that. But it's a completely different profile, if you get what I mean. So if Wolves are planning to buy Joao Palhinha and kind of tell him to do what Ruben Neves does and dictate a game and kind of sit back and read it and make interceptions instead of tackles or kind of an even amount, that's not Joao Palhinha's game. He's one of those guys that rushes out and wins tackles high up the pitch and transitions. And by the way, his pass completion in Liga NOS is 88%, so he's probably better on the ball than these Champions League numbers suggest, by the way. But I would be concerned that if we're going to try and tell him to do what Ruben does in a 3-4-3, he's probably not going to be able to do it, or it won't feel natural to him. Whereas if we're planning to play a 3-4-3 and let him do his natural game and press and run out, which Moutinho and Neves don't really do, they've never really had great pressing numbers. Maybe this is a tactical thing. Maybe Bruno's looking at this and going, you know what, as good as Neves is, if you get Palhinha in, maybe you can press a bit higher, win the ball higher up the pitch and kind of transition quicker. Or, obviously, the other alternative is, we're maybe going to play a 4-3-3 or switch to a back four. And maybe Bruno's looking at it and going, we don't need a Ruben Neves and a Joao Moutinho. We don't need two ball players because you've obviously got three in the middle. So maybe he's looking at it and going, Joao Palhinha can win the ball higher up. He's 6'3" or 6'2". Sorry, he's a bit, he's a bit of a bigger guy. And if Morgan Gibbs White's there, then you can look at it and go, okay, Morgan Gibbs White's your attacking guy, Joao Moutinho's your ball player, and Joao Palhinha's your ball winner. Maybe that's how Wolves are looking at it. But it would be interesting to see, because if Wolves are planning to force this guy into doing what Ruben Neves does, his numbers don't really suggest that that's what he is. Ruben's someone that sits back, dictates the play, intercepts passes. He doesn't really crunch into tackles in the way that Joao Palhinha's numbers suggest he will. But overall, I think it's a good signing, good age. It's a decent price. Wolves need to accept that Ruben Neves is going to leave. Let's get this done early, get Palhinha in, get him settled in pre-season, and spend the rest of that money properly on the squad. And this can be a good window. It's good that Wolves are getting business done early. Obviously, Leeds have already signed Brendan Aronson. Villa have already signed Kamara. We need to get business done early. And this is a good profile. I'd just be a bit concerned that he's a different type of DM to Ruben Neves. And if we try and force him in, it might not work. But but I like to think that Bruno would know that and isn't stupid. But who knows? If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and yeah, peace.